Anybody, anywhere,
It's time to take command.
The Cardiac Commanders are the Clutch Commanders!
With former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen.
This pass caught by Paulsen, the tight end.
And from 106.7 The Fan, Grant Paulsen.
Take command coming your way on a game week. Commanders Giants Sunday, Northwest Stadium, 1 p.m. Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen with you. Thank you for making the pod part of your weekly appointments for listening and viewing, however you're getting us, wherever you get your audio, on the 106.7 The Fan, Team 980 YouTubes. We appreciate it. Logan, you have been in the lab watching the tape. You are ready to break this one down for us. Just a few days away from the start of the NFL season.
I mean, how crazy is it, man? Every year I feel like when it's week one, it always feels like the offense kind of ripped by, and it's exciting to be talking football and real meaningful games. And the other thing that I'd like to talk to you about is there's so much unknown still. Even though we've been talking about this team for months and months and months, I still feel like there's so many questions about what they're actually going to be this year.
I think that's the state of the union with the NFL in 2025 because you don't have a lot of time on the grass. There's not nearly as much practice time. Teams, and Washington, I think, is one of these teams, frankly, use September in a lot of ways as the new August. Not that they're not trying to get off to a fast start, but let's call it what it is. The Commanders did not make the preseason game opportunities much of a priority. Some of their guys didn't play at all. Most of their starters played a handful of snaps on offense. So how could we possibly know a lot? I mean, they got good work in a joint session with the Patriots, but that's been over a month ago, basically, at this point. And so it's been a while since we've really seen anything overly meaningful on the practice field for our eyes. They get a lot done every day. But, yeah, this is going to be fascinating. I think this is the sport, by the way, where maybe the least at the start of the year for what things are going to look like, and we kind of figure it out as we go. But along those lines, let's get into Commanders-Giants. So I'm sure you go back and you watch the first couple of games these two teams played last year. Why don't we lay it out this way? Offense in segment one, defense in segment two. We'll get to some burning questions at the end of the show. But for the Commanders' offense against the Giants' defense, what types of things did you see when you watched back two games from last year?
Yeah, so I think when you go back and watch last year, it's just kind of the difference in approach, and I think the evolution of kind of Shane Bowen's philosophy in terms of trying to contain Jaden Daniels. So week one, it's a lot of softer coverages. They do have some stuff on third down that gets a little bit of little spicy in terms of 5-man pressures, zone pressures, removing people. Do they even do that this year with the drafting of Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau? I think his name brings a lot of recognition, but I think he's a good pass rusher. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence, can you just rush with 4 and kind of play softer coverage behind it? And then I think the transition from that week 1 game to week 2 game to week 9 or whatever it was interesting because I felt like Shane Bowen came out and was a little bit more aggressive than I kind of perceive him to be. I always kind of think of him as this cover 4, cover 6. We're going to be in 2, cover 3, zone coverage emphasis, keep it in front of you, bend but don't break. And when you look at the statistics from Tennessee, I think that really bears itself out. Obviously, they started the game with more man emphasis in the second round and then kind of got back to what he's more familiar with. But they came out and kind of took it to the Commanders early. I want to say the first 5 to 10 defensive plays, they were very aggressive, very downhill, kind of pressing guys up on the perimeter. And they weren't that good on the secondary last year. I mean, they've made some improvements. And so I think when you look at those two games, you kind of say to yourself, well, what do they want to be and how do they choose to attack Washington this year? And so one of the things that I kind of started thinking about when you're watching film is they've brought in Paulsen and Debo. They brought in that new safety from Miami. And do they kind of say we can play more man coverage and be more aggressive in terms of line movement and pressure stuff on first and second down to create third and longs and put you in a bind and then play the coverage structures we want and get that kind of cheetah speed, elite pass rushing group on the field where they've got Abdul Carter lined up over the guard, Brian Burns over the tackle, Kayvon Thibodeau over the tackle with Dexter Lawrence at the 3 tech or at the shade. Maybe that's kind of the direction you go. Because again, when you look at history of this team, of the Commanders since Jaden Daniels been here, the teams that have really been able to stick it to them defensively, play a lot of man, they win with 4, and have the Giants made enough additions this offseason to do that, I think is the question that I would be kind of milling around as we head into week 1.
It would seem intuitive to me, with them having one of the best fronts that Washington's going to play all season, that if they can't do it with 4, who can? That's kind of my thought, right? That's why you draft Abdul Carter at the top of the board. Brian Burns, they gave up, more than Washington did for a Laramie Tunsil or a Deebo Samuel. Like, he was their marquee splash acquisition. Dexter Lawrence is one of the best defensive tackles in the league. So just intuitively, it would feel like that's the strategy, right? I mean, why sink all those assets into the line if you then need to help them out a bunch?
Well, I think the thing that I came back to was, do they feel like they're good enough in the back end, right? Like, so when I say rush with 4, like, they're going to rush with 4, but what kind of coverage contour are you playing behind it? Because I think about teams that were like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. There was another team that I'm forgetting. I guess it was Philadelphia twice, but they were able to kind of press, be a little bit more aggressive in man coverage situations, and really disrupt the timing, especially on deep down the field stuff. Obviously, in the playoff game with Philadelphia, and then Pittsburgh did a great job of that. They gave up explosive plays occasionally, but on the whole, aggressive press coverage, and then they're able to compress the pocket. And so that's the question for me is, do you feel like Banks has taken a step? He kind of struggled last year a little bit, the Maryland prospect, and then Paulsen and Logan from New Orleans he played a lot of man. To me, he's a little stiff, little high cut. Like, what does he look like? And can he match some of the, like, match a number 2, match a number 1 receiver? I don't know. And then you look at like Javon Holland from Miami. Like, he was a 2nd round pick, kind of really good mover, a lot of ball production a couple years ago, kind of tailed off. One of the reasons he's not in Miami anymore. So do you feel like the back end of this group can hold it down for you while those 4 guys get after you up front?
So a couple of the guys up front that I want to drill down on, when you watch them, what do you see? And I've got some numbers here that I find really interesting on them. First, Brian Burns generated a team-high 66 pressures last season. That was a career high that he set back in 2022 that he surpassed with the Panthers. 32 of those pressures were generated under 2.5 seconds, right? So that's the 5th highest quick pressure share in the National Football League, about 49%, which tells you he's winning, or they're getting him some looks where maybe he's coming free occasionally. And then also Dexter Lawrence, who a lot of people feel like might be the best D tackle in the league with Chris Jones. He's got 4 hands on him a lot, Logan. I mean, This is a guy who faced a double team on 64% of his pass rushes last season. That was the highest rate in the NFL, by over 10 percentage points higher than any other defender, minimum of 150 rushes, which is crazy to me. Another thing I saw when I was studying Dexter Lawrence's numbers was that double team rate was the highest that we've seen of any player in the next gen stats era, really going back to 2016. And it was like 6 percentage points higher than anybody else. So what does that tell you, not only about Lawrence, but then if you want to give me a thought on Burns as well, just the personnel that they put together before they even drafted Carter in the top 5, because now it's just an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you brought those 2 guys up, because to me those are 2, like, they're the straw that stirs the drink kind of deal. Like, Dexter Lawrence is a dude, man. Like, it was so funny going back and watching that second game, because you didn't really feel him. Like, he didn't have a lot of tackles, he didn't have a lot of pressures, but the power, the dexterity, the quickness that he has for a nose guard. Like, there's a couple times where, Sam Cosmi's hitting a down block and he gets to a long arm, and it's like textbook stuff. And the thing that makes it so textbook is he's so damn strong. He's got his arm kind of right down Cosmi's center mass, and Cosmi, I've seen Cosmi blow dudes off the ball, pancakes, the whole thing. He like lifts Cosmi out of position and then just starts side shuffling with a 315-pound man. He's in his gap. He's trying to condense the other gap, and it ends up being like a 6-yard gain because the linebacker doesn't fill it quick enough. But I'm like, man, there's only a couple people on planet Earth that can make that kind of play. And so as a run defender, you see his power, you see his quickness, you see his hand strength. As a pass rusher, like, I went back and watched his sacks from last year. If you get him in a one-on-one situation on a center, which they were able to do very well early in the season last year, he's going to give you absolute fits. Because what he does is he's so powerful. You'll see him kind of snap the center back. They coach those guys to kind of hop to stop, get your hips forward. When you do that, you're a little off balance. He's so good at then turning a shoulder, and it's not like the Aaron Donald turn the shoulder where it's like, quick stutter, bam, bam, I'm grabbing pads, and like my athleticism's getting me through there. It's like I'm like forklifting you out of position and then ripping around, and I'm going to create a sack compressing the pocket. So he's an impressive football player, and I think definitely if the Giants were better, would be in like, defensive player of the year kind of conversations if he can stay healthy for the whole year. And then Brian Burns, like everyone kind of poo-pooed that addition because he hadn't been super productive in Carolina. He, to me, man, like he's the guy in terms of rushing off the edge for them. Dexter Lawrence is the guy that gets it going in the interior, but Burns is electric. Like he did some stuff in the preseason this year where he's doing like line stunts in the run game. His ability to move laterally, turn his shoulders, and cover ground and really just close distances to the ball carrier and the quarterback is really tremendous. So to me, like if you said get your best three on the field, I'm taking Kayvon Thibodeau off, and I want Andre Carter out there. Or Abdul Carter, excuse me. Like I want Abdul Carter out there rushing the passer because again, what I've seen, he had a limited reps in the preseason, but what you watch from him in college, what you see from him in the preseason, you say, man, I want those two dudes meeting at the quarterback, and I'm going to trust Dexter Lawrence to compress that pocket. And again, when you look at things,
point, their pressure to sack percentage as a defensive unit was the highest in the NFL when Dexter Lawrence was on the field. So what does that mean? It means like when they get near the quarterback doesn't get away. And I think that's because you can't step up and elude, right? Like when you're getting that pressure off the edge, pressure to sack oftentimes, think about Jaden Daniels or these slippery guys who come through the line of scrimmage like a surfer through a wave. He's going to push the pocket into their face. And now with any kind of exterior pressure, it's curtains. The Ravens were the best in the league at pressure to sack percentages of defense last year, at about 24% of pressures turning into sacks. The Giants are better than that when Lawrence is on the field, to your point. So he's driving somebody into the quarterback's lap.
It's a great point. And I think when you look at, again, Pittsburgh, they do a great job of this. You mentioned Baltimore. I'm really glad you brought them up too. The way they kind of coach the interior pass rushers, it's not, again, I'm not vacating a gap. I'm not attacking an edge. I'm compressing it vertically, right? And so when you get guys on the interior that just bull the guard back into the quarterback, and it's not just a straight bull, it's not two hands on the chest, it's like a half man. We mentioned the shoulder turn. When he does that, he's not getting width, he's staying nice and vertical. So to me, if that guy's in the game and those two guys are on the perimeter, you have to have some type of protection plan. And again, like Kayvon Thibodeau, I don't want to, again, ignore his contribution to this. I just don't think he's on the same level athletically as those two guys that we just talked about, Burns and Carter. So I think you got to have a really comprehensive plan. And then the other thing is what they've shown in the preseason so far is it goes Burns on the left, Abdul Carter at the 3, Dexter Lawrence at the nose, and then Kayvon Thibodeau on the perimeter. And again, talk about compressing pockets. Like Abdul Carter's ability to win quick on a guard with his athleticism, that's going to compress the pocket too. And when you look at Micah Parsons last year in terms of his production, and I hate to compare the two, but I'm just saying in terms of usage, Micah Parsons' ability to create quick wins over centers and guards with his athleticism, I think is something Abdul Carter's going to bring. So I definitely think you need some type of plan, comprehensive plan, chip help, slide help, something to make sure that when we do get in third and medium situations and they do bring this personnel package out there, like what's our solution to it? And again, people are going to say stay out of third and long. And as much as you want to do that, it's not tenable for the course of a game,
Yeah, that's a great philosophy. That's like saying always have a plan and make your food the night before and lay out your clothes, and then life happens. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then next thing you know, bro, you're in line. Not you, Logan Paulsen would never, but like another portly Paulsen maybe would be in the line at the fast food place because he's got 4 kids screaming and crying on their way back from an activity. Right?
Yeah,
you're gonna end up in third and long. It's going to happen. We'll get into the Commanders' offense and really put the spotlight on them specifically in a moment, but I'm just going over some of the new personnel with the Giants to familiarize people and to dive into what Logan saw. So you've mentioned the secondary a couple times. I want to get into that. Paulsen and Debo, aptly named for this podcast, I will say. You don't see very many first-name Paulsens, although he spells it wrong. And then also they brought in Javon Holland, remember, at safety as well. So a couple of things on those guys. Debo's coming off of a very serious injury. He ended up being lost for the season with a leg injury last year. But interestingly, weeks 1 through 7, he had the highest number of targets against him in the secondary with 55 targets in those games. So he allowed, just because you're getting thrown at a lot, second most receiving yards, 414 through 7 weeks last year. But if you look at actual like metrics that show you efficiency, his target EPA during that span was the fewest of any defender in the NFL, and he had 3 interceptions. So this is a guy who's put up some numbers who has played pretty well. They bring him in at corner. They go get Javon Holland at safety. He signed a 3-year deal, $15 million per year. If you look at completion percentage over expected numbers at his position last year, he actually ranked 4th in the NFL behind some guys like Kirby Joseph and Tyrann Mathieu, who are stars. So I think they feel really good about the money they spent in the secondary. How do you think it changes what they're going to do with those guys added?
Yeah, that's the big question to me. Is like, are you just more aggressive? Like when you look at Paulsen and Debo, you mentioned the target share. Like again, he's a hot mess sometimes. Like he's grabbing people, he's pulling people down. Like he's very handsy. He reminds me a little bit of like the Marshawn Lattimore we got right out of New Orleans. Like they must be coaching them that way just to be hyper aggressive at the line of scrimmage and down the field. Again, I think he's a little stiff, but the thing that shows up about him is he is a dog competitor. He is a great tackler. He's physical. And he plays man coverage. Like that's what he does. And like you mentioned, the 3 interceptions, those are in man. Like he's bullying receivers to the ground. They're trying to throw a slant. They hit him right in the chest, right? He's a physical dude. And so when I look at this, I'm saying like, man, like again, Shane Bowen has been traditionally more of a zone coach, right? Softer, relaxed. And then on third down, we're going to get some spicier zone pressures, some man pressures, whatever it is. But with Paulsen and Debo and Banks, who in my estimation is more of a man corner anyway. And then we haven't even talked about maybe their best secondary player is Drew Phillips, the guy that plays nickel for him. He's excellent in man coverage. So to me, it's like you've assembled this perimeter group of man football players. And so it seems like you're leaning that way, kind of in the same way Joe Witt Jr. is leaning that way. I want to be man. I want to be aggressive. And when you look at the landscape of the league, that's kind of the direction people are going to handle the RPO stuff, to handle some of those all-read stuff. Just let you be more aggressive downhill to your fits. So I don't know. That to me is the $1 million question. Honestly, Grant, is like, do they kind of shift does Shane Bowen shift his identity to accommodate what the Commanders did and what has made it difficult for them in the past?
Yeah, the other thing is, and I never know with 1 year, like if this is what a guy is or this is what he had to be as a coach, right? Because maybe you don't get to the stuff you really want to do because that was your personnel in that first year and it hasn't really been shaped in your image. But to your point, like you look at a lot of Bowen stuff from before and it's not overly exotic, but they did end up last year with the 6th highest blitz rate in the NFL.
They do blitz on third down. And again, when they're in a 30, so this is an important thing. When you're looking at that blitz statistic, when you're looking at 3-4 teams, oftentimes they bring like Sam Will, right? So your 2 edge players who are basically like defensive ends, like they're going to blitz them. And so that is going to elevate your blitz rate. So like a good example of this is like Philadelphia. They always have a crazy high blitz percentage every single year. Or like this was probably 2 years ago now. They were like number 1 in the league. And people are like, and when you watch the film, it's like they're not blitzing a ton, but they're just bringing 5-man pressures on first and second down because like that's the structure of their defense. So he does bring exotic stuff on third down, but he doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to constantly be heating you up.
For those numbers, I wonder too, nerding out a little bit. Like I've always thought Jim Haslett used to say this to me all the time, like 5's a dog, 6 is a blitz.
Yeah.
They're counting just an extra guy as a blitz, you think? Like the 5th dog?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I think like
to
when
me,
you look at those
6 would be a blitz.
Because I remember looking at what service are you using? This is
NGS, Next Gen Stats. Yeah.
So most of them, like even PFF, like they just count if it's 4, it's base, and if there's a 5th, then it's a blitz. And so like you get these weird.
Is that how you counted it as a player?
Yeah, I mean you got to know like if it's first and second down, like what's their number 1 blitz? Like what's their number 1? Are they bringing more than 4?
Like where's the pressure coming from?
Yeah. For example, like this is a really good example. Like Pittsburgh, they run a 3-4, but their main pressure is cross dog, right? So like they're still bringing 5, but the pattern's going to be different, and the ends are going to play. The Sam and the Will are going to play soft, kind of feather players and really hard contain players. So if I'm blocking power, where I'm blocking down on a 4-eye, it's like the guy over the tackle. I have to know that I'm more likely going to see a loop or a stunt out because they're bringing a cross dog, even though they're only bringing 5. So to me, the pattern as a player was really important because it affected line movement.
The other thing, too, is along those lines, you talk about how aggressive they were on third down. If you're in more third downs, right, than other teams, it might skew some of those numbers. But the last thing I want to point out just from a Giants statistical dive was that they didn't tackle very well last year, and they gave up a lot on the ground. I mean, they were not a great run defense. In fact, they surrendered a league high in rushing yards over expected. So a lot of times they were there. They could have made the play, but that second most by a defense since 2018 in terms of, what was kind of able to be done to get guys on the ground and what they were able to do, over 400 yards in the negative in that way. I wonder if that's not the plan for Washington coming in here. Let's see if they can stop the run. They couldn't last year.
So.
Let's figure that out.
I think that's 100% right. I think when you look at them last year, and maybe some of it's because the new defense, guys aren't 100% locked in on the fits. It's interesting because you think, they got Dexter Lawrence, they got Nunez Roches, this big kind of hulking 4-eye. They've got the other gentleman from Jacksonville. His name is Roy Robertson Harris, who's like this big, tall, long 4-eye. They're going to stop the run. For whatever reason, every year when you watch the Giants, I don't know if it's how they're coaching those guys. They don't set hard edges. And even though those guys do a good job of gliding on the interior, there's all these creases. So I don't know. In the preseason this year, I thought they threw a little bit more movement. I'm talking the Giants in terms of their defensive front. And sometimes you're hoping that just screws up, offensive linemen. They kind of get picked and they don't go the right combinations and you get free runners. But also if you don't do that well and you catch it as an offense, you're going to get gashed. So I think they kind of walk this. I think he's playing with things, at least in my observation, to kind of help them in this area. And so we'll see if any of it actually comes to fruition. But on paper, they in terms of personnel, they should be very good at stopping the run. It just doesn't seem like they've been able to kind of click it. And again, like the other thing too with those run fits is when they do play a lot of quarters, and those safeties are fitting from depth, and you need great tacklers. So if those guys aren't playing good ball, it's going to manifest itself in some negative rushing statistics.
He's Logan Paulsen. I'm Grant Paulsen. All right, so we'll drill deeper down into your offensive game plan and how to exploit some of the names on this Giants defense we just talked about. It's a very talented group, especially up front. And then we'll get into Washington's defense against a Giants offense with a veteran quarterback that's going to probably go through Malik Neighbors again in the passing game. We'll do that next as we continue. This is Take Command. Take Command. This is episode 1 of the regular season of sorts as we look ahead to the Giants. The rhythm of the show throughout the season is going to be these deep dives, film studies from Logan, and kind of getting you ready. One of the things I'm going to have him do every week is give me, his game plan essentially as an offensive coordinator, and then a couple guys we think that could exploit the other side of the ball for the opponent. So let's do that here. Offensively for Washington, succinctly, like you're Cliff Kingsbury, you're watching the Giants. What kind of game is this? Whose game is this in the huddle? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, I think, if I had to make a game plan, I'd kind of, again, I want to know, my first couple of play calls are going to be exploratory. I'm going to kind of figure out who they want to be. If Shane Bowen's going to line up in man coverage, for those first 5 or 6 plays like he did in the second matchup, or he's going to play this soft zone coverage like he did in the first matchup. Because if he's going to play soft zone, I want to get into 3-by-1 formations. I want to spread people out. I want to run against light boxes, and I want to force him, as I've created this width in the formation, to have to do something he doesn't want to do, which is he's been pretty fastidious, or he was in week 1 last year, or the first matchup, of saying we're going to play numbers over numbers. So if you have 3 receivers, we got 4 coverage players. If we got 1 receiver, we got 2 coverage players, and basically never put anybody in a bind. But when you do that, you create favorable box count numbers for the offensive line and for the running back, especially if Jane Daniels is running the football. So if that's what they're going to do and that's who they want to be, I'm going to run the football against those lighter box structures, and we're going to just bleed them to death until they bring someone in the box, bring another coverage player down. We're going to throw bubble screens, work them, and then eventually they're going to have to come down and press us up, and we're going to throw deep. Now, if they come out and play man coverage, I want great man beaters. And again, that's why the first couple play calls have to be exploratory in nature, because if they're going to play man, I'm going to see if Paulsen and Debo can cover Terry McLaurin. I'm going to throw a go ball. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to see if we can get a PI. I'm going to see if we can get them out of that, and then kind of get into the stuff that we're good at, which is quarterback run game, RPO, quick game, kind of back them up to hit that underneath stuff. And if they start coming down again, we'll hit them over the top. And I think Cliff did such a great job last year, and Jaden Daniels, of feeling that rhythm in a game. And I think we'll see something very similar.
You mentioned if Jaden Daniels is running the football. Last year, 891 rushing yards were the second most at the quarterback position. He finished third among QBs with 6 rushing touchdowns. He actually led all quarterbacks in scramble rushing yards, non-designed, with 600. And he was number 2 in design run yards, 302, behind, not surprisingly, Lamar Jackson, who ran for 481 yards by design. Bigger picture question for the season. What are you expecting from Daniels as a rusher? Do you think he turns that fader down a little bit as a scrambler and tries to stay either in the pocket longer and or kind of reset and throw downfield, which he did more and more of as the year went along? And then also by design, how much of that do you anticipate? The same amount, more, less, as he is more comfortable now as an NFL quarterback?
Yeah, I think the scrambling number probably stays approximately the same. I think that's like where he's at his best, that kind of creative playmaking ability, that creative playmaking feel. I think the area that I would look to maybe turn the fader up or whatever is the quarterback run stuff. Again, like they did a little bit of it last year, especially in third and short, fourth and short situations, and I thought that was really effective there. But he's shown a feel and an ability to say like, hey, I'm back here, I'm reading the concept. And now when the play is dead, like he did in the preseason game, we talked about that, right? The play is dead. What are we going to do? I'm going to scramble for a touchdown. Like, I feel like that's where he's his most dangerous. Like, he's such a good, fastidious decision maker when it's like, I'm protecting the football. I can run. I can throw. Like, that's where I feel like this offense just feels indefensible because of his ability to consistently make a decision. So if anything, I'm going to give him more opportunity to do that. Just if he can show that he can do that, let's make good decisions. Let's make the coordinator right and elevate this offense, the way he did for most of last year.
So that's interesting because I think the common perception out there is maybe he'll run less, and it's just the natural thing of, being in the pocket more often or being more comfortable. I'm actually with you where that is the superpower. That's the cape, how he flies around as Superman. And I think there probably are more opportunities. Again, it was almost a 200-yard discrepancy between he and Lamar in terms of designed runs. So would you then, like last year, it was 890 yards. He never ripped off the 75-yarder that Griffin had against the Vikings. I think that's in the bag if he needs it at some point. Maybe that's going to happen in his career. Would you go over or under like 890 and a half last year's total for him as a rusher this year?
That's a good question. I'd probably go under. But again, I think those rushes are still going to be incredibly impactful. Like 3rd and 5, scramble for a first down. That's not going to show up as like, oh my gosh, look at what Jaden Daniels did. He rushed for. But I think like the ability to keep the offense on schedule is going to be huge. And I don't want to diminish everything else he did well. Like, yeah, he's an excellent decision maker. He made excellent decisions when to scramble. He kept the offense on the field with his legs a lot last year. But also like his ability as a passer to make good decisions is also something that is exquisite, right? The quick game, the touch on the deep ball. Hopefully we'll see more throws over the middle of the field. I'm really looking forward to see if that's a part of the offense moving forward. And so you look at those 3 elements and it's like, man, I just want that dude. Like, I want him being the point guard for the offense, right? He just consistently makes good decisions. He makes the receivers better, makes the O-line better, and he keeps the offense on schedule, which keeps the defense on the sideline and allows them to throw their pitches when they got to throw their pitches. So to me, he's the best player on the offense. Let's let him do his work. And as long as we can protect him and keep the pocket clean, let's make that happen now. People say, oh, well, Logan, do you want to throw the ball 60 times a game? Absolutely not. We got to run the football to insulate the offensive line because as good as Jaden Daniels is at making decisions, like I don't want him to feel the pressure of doing that 60 times in a row. I want to give him some easy downs, some layups, some kind of, hey, let's check to a run here at the line of scrimmage. Let the offensive line do some work. And again, insulate that offensive line. We're playing the Giants. They got great pass rushers. Let's not leverage that group too much as well.
All right, so then the last thing from a Commander's offensive standpoint here on Take Command, Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen. And each week I kind of want to try to get a prediction from you on this. If I was to say that somebody is going to have a huge game, could be a back or a receiver, like based on what you see and how the Giants operate, who's big game? Who eats? Let's call this who eats every week.
That's a great question. So if they come out playing a lot of man, I think one of the receivers might have a big game, in terms of like taking a shot down the field. If they're playing more soft zone, I want to say Chris Rodriguez or whoever's the back, Austin Eckler, whoever is the back starting the game, because again, like one of the things that Chris did and Austin did so well last year in the second game was when they got light box structures, when they were concerned about shots, when they were concerned about the quarterback run, they were able to kind of take messy runs, find creases, and break off little like chunk yardage. And I think if they're going to play those soft coverages and you're just going to run it and they're going to be stubborn about staying in there, like I think the offensive line's good enough. I think the backs are strong enough in terms of downhill running style to maximize that. And I think they could have a very productive day.
All right, Logan, the study of the Giants offense should have been a little bit of a lighter lift because there aren't nearly as many personnel changes here, frankly. I mean, you do have Russell Wilson at quarterback. There's also probably just a lot less marquee talent. Malik Neighbors is a dog. He's going to be a difficult player to reckon with. Last year in 2 games against Washington, 29 targets, 19 catches, 186 yards, and a touchdown. Their offense effectively goes through him. You know, he is really, really twitchy and hard to cover in man. Washington has run a lot of that. We could talk about that. But let's start with what you found when you put on the tape.
Yeah, so I think when you look at the tape of the preseason specifically, I think the quarterbacks there played pretty well. And I give a lot of credit to Brian Daboll and that offensive staff, Mike Kafka, for putting together that program and really putting them in good positions to be successful. But it all, to me, this feels like the way a lot of teams without quarterbacks are going to play the game, especially a team like the Giants with a really good defense, is they're going to run the ball. They're going to try and possess the football. They're going to try and stay on schedule until they get into a good situation, a 2nd and 2, a 2nd and 3, plus 50-yard line, and we're going to take a shot. And when you look at the preseason, like Russell Wilson did a great job. They have in the second matchup last year, they do a lot of like check with me at the line of scrimmage. It's like we've got 2 plays called. Don't like the first one. Let's check to the second one based off safety rotation, based off front spacing. And so,
and how can you tell that? Just how the communication, nonverbal or tapping the helmet or whatever.
Yeah. So like when you're watching the game, this is kind of the universal system, universal signal for can, which is basically like we're going to the next play.
For people listening, Logan's tapping his temples, basically.
Sorry. Yes. There we go. I'm tapping my helmet there. And then the receivers will tap their helmet. The running back will tap their helmet. And you'll see some communication with the offensive line. We're re-miking the run. We're retargeting the protection, whatever we're doing. And in the preseason, they did a great job. They were backed up against the Jets. The Jets were in a disguise, single high safety. I actually did a breakdown of this on the command. It's a new show I'm doing. It's called the Film Breakdown Show. It's on the Commander's YouTube page. But basically, they look like they're in cover 3, but because of linebacker spacing, they're actually in cover 2. Russell identifies it. And again, this is what having an experienced quarterback does for you. He taps his helmet at the line of scrimmage. They run duo. It's an 8-yard gain, 10-yard gain backed up. They stay on schedule. The next time they're in a 2nd and 4 situation, Russell sees that it's cover 1. He checks the play. They run a post and a wheel behind it. It's a classic cover 3 beater. And Russell hits I think it's like a 75-yard bomb. The guy gets tackled at the 1-yard line. Wow. So,
by the way, this is why, I have my partner on Grant and Danny on 106.7 The Fan every day. Danny Rouillet is always he would never bring in a veteran quarterback. He'd always just start Jackson Dart right away. Now I'm throwing him under the bus. I'm just saying this is why teams do this, right? This is why Russell Wilson is starting. It's a bridge to nowhere in a sense in the grand scheme of things, but he's going to be able to get you out of some really terrible situations.
Yeah, terrible situations, and he's still skilled. He's not what he was when he's an MVP candidate and he's one of the best players in football. He's not that guy anymore, no doubt. But the throw was excellent. The decision making is excellent. And again, it's going to be kind of what he is now. It's going to be outside the numbers, down the field. The short intermediate stuff's not going to be as good because he doesn't see it as well. But if you can run the football, and this is where you said the offense runs through Malik Neighbors. I agree with you to a certain extent, but the person that drives this offense to me is Tyrone Tracy Jr. How efficient he is at maximizing muddy runs, creating explosive runs when there's a crease there. If he keeps them on schedule with that offensive line, which is a little bit kind of the land of misfit toys in terms of people they brought in, that's going to be a long day because it lets them do the keeper game. It lets them work boots. It lets them move the pocket. It lets them take play action shots. So that's one that I think is as much as Malik Neighbors is the explosive element, it all is generated from the run game. And when I first started this rant, the reason they feel they can do this is because if I can possess the football, insulate the defense, and rely on and not make a mistake, the defense can win this game for us because that's how talented that front four is, at least on paper. We'll see how that actually comes across in execution. But I think that's the philosophy you're looking at here with the Giants.
Tyrone Tracy, you guys may remember from last year, broke out as a rookie, 5th-round pick, played at Iowa and Purdue in college. He's 25 years old. He did have a fumbling problem, which was kind of the one bugaboo last season, so that could be something to monitor in this game. It's certainly going to be something they talk about at the park all week long, I'm sure. But he ran for 840 yards, about 4.5 a pop, scored 5 touchdowns on the ground, and was a real revelation for them in the late rounds as a player last year. Going back to Neighbors for a second, because last season's 2 games were so jarring, frankly, in terms of usage, his target share was 54% on routes run in the first game, which is like unheard of in week 2, and then 69.2% in a subsequent game when they played, which was the most in a game by a wide receiver since 2016 when they started tracking this. Like, do you think that was based on a matchup they liked and or the fact that Washington's corners were weak, or like is that a well they go back to, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
I think so what I would say is last year, like, he was the offense, right? He was the only guy that could really create consistent separation versus man coverage on the perimeter. Obviously they have other guys there. Darius Slayton, who's an explosive kind of down the field guy, kind of like a souped up version of De'Ami Brown, really. You're always kind of maybe saying, oh, we can get better at this spot, but he's a good NFL pro. Wan'Dale Robinson's a great slot player, but in terms of like stud, it's Malik Neighbors. And I think one thing about Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka is I respect this about coordinators, is they know which players can make them money. And so I felt like that's what they did. They said, who can win versus man coverage? Malik Neighbors. Let's find ways to get him as many touches as possible. And he's going to be a difference maker in this offense. And I think that bore itself out, right? And so when you're having a hard time with the quarterback making decisions, creating separation, I look at this as like, Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson up in Minnesota. It's easy to get a quarterback to evolve and insulate them when the number one receiver can get open all the time. And I think they kind of said, like, let's just do that here with him. And obviously he has the concussion. There's some hamstring stuff later in the year, so he's not quite as prolific later in the season. But I think that is the way I would look at that receiving group. And it's gotten a little bit better, a little bit more consistent, a little bit healthier. Healthier is probably the word I would use. But I think, again, he's still the guy with the teeth in that receiver room.
There's no reason to assume that Lattimore would travel around, right? Like, they're going to play halves of the field, and occasionally it's going to be Neighbors in the slot against Mikey Sanders still, Neighbors against Amos. Like, everybody's going to see some of him.
I don't know. I'll be curious to see how. Again, this is why week 1 is so fun to me. It's like, what's the plan? Like last year, Marshawn Lattimore traveled with A.J. Brown. And do you travel him with Malik Neighbors? Or how do you feel about Trey Amos? How do you feel about Mikey? Again, I think this group's going to be much more aggressive in terms of coverage structure. We've talked about it a ton on this podcast. And so you can be. And I think you feel good about, I honestly feel good about all 3 of those guys matching up with Malik Neighbors. And again, would you maybe feel better if it's Marshawn all the time? Sure. But I do think like you have enough dexterity now from a coverage perspective and man-to-man skill coverage specifically that you probably feel okay. So I'm really curious to see how they handle it, what they do. This feels like a team you want to play man coverage against. And again, even like a sneaky matchup is Wan'Dale Robinson versus Mikey Sanders still. Like Wan'Dale is incredibly sudden. He's incredibly fast. Like, do they kind of find a way to exploit that? Has he taken the next step? So this is one of those ones week 1 and why it's so fun to talk about is just who's more prepared. What is the actual identity of the defense? But that all being said, I think the number one thing that has to happen is they have to figure out a way to stop the run consistently, or it's going to be a long day for them on that side of the ball.
All right, so I'll get back to that in a second, but I want to go back to something you just said that interested me. You said this is a team you probably want to play man against, and I think that that's true. I feel that way, but I want you to tell everyone why you feel that way, and then I want to give you these numbers, and you can react to them in your answer. 2 games with the Giants last year, 24 passes against man coverage. The Giants had 17 catches for over 160 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they completed 71%. Now, against the rest of the NFL, Washington's defense only allowed 56% passes completed against man, which is to say they had a way worse time against the Giants, and I think it's a neighbor-specific thing largely, than they did with everybody else. So they obviously felt that way last year too. It backfired on them a little bit, but go into that.
Well, I think last year you look at the people that were playing, and they were people that are no longer on the team. And again, I think one of the reasons you make some of these decisions, specifically in the secondary and bringing some of these people in, is to say, you mentioned it with the Giants defensive coordinator, you want the defense to be built in your image. And I think Joe Witt Jr. is an aggressive man coverage coach. And so I think you brought in a bunch of people that are aggressive and can play man coverage. And so I just look at the personnel defensively, and I look at their personnel, and I'm like, I think we can match up okay here, right? And I'm not saying you play man all the time, but I think you feel very comfortable about playing man in the majority of situations. And I think that allows you to be more aggressive with your 5-man pressure. You play heavier box structures. You can do some stuff that makes you feel, again, like kind of set the tempo and dictate to the offense. And if you feel like you can match up with Malik Neighbors, awesome. But if I'm Brian Daboll, like I know that, I know intuitively know that. So I'm going to find ways to move him around the formation and make it hard for you to do that and test your rules and see if we can get him on the fish and create picks. And then what's Joe Wood Jr.'s response? And that's why this game is so fun to me, because no identity has been established. There's still so many question marks. There's so many solutions to problems that are going to be presented by both sides of the ball. And it just, how do you handle those in game? And do you have the right people in the building in terms of personnel to handle some of the adversity that in this case, the Giants offense is going to try and present?
Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen, take command. Yeah, to back up something you said with a number in terms of what Joe Witt wants to be. Now, again, some of the accounting on these percentages can be a little quirky, but top 5 in the NFL last year, 39% man coverage rate for Washington. It's what they like to do. It's what they hope to be doing more of with their personnel. What are you really excited about defensively finding out or seeing? Like, who's somebody or what is something that you keep talking about? And you're so right. Like, week 1 is awesome in this way. But, like, what is the thing that you're most interested in when their defense is on the field?
Man, can we do like down and distance? Let's do down and distance. So first down, I can't wait to see Javon Kinlaw just rip some offensive lineman's face mask off. I can't wait to see how his addition and Payne's kind of new conditioning affect Bobby Wagner. Because I really think, like I've told you, I think they've built this defense so he can make these angles and make these plays. On third down, like, are they in a lot of man? Like, what kind of pressure packages are they in? Who's in there rushing the passer? Can't wait to see all that stuff. Like, so again, like, there's layers to it. Like, there's players I want to watch. There's schematic things I want to watch. So yeah, I want to see Kinlaw. I want to see Von Miller on third down. I want to see how they use Frankie Louvo on third down. And do you stay aggressive with these man-to-man coverage matchups on the perimeter? So yeah, all those things are kind of forefront of mind for me.
I've mentioned Frankie Louvo a few times on the pod, who's their ultimate Swiss Army knife. This is a guy that does a little bit of everything for them. He had 215 rushes last season, which were the most by any linebacker and the third most in about 10 seasons. You got to go back to Micah Parsons when he played linebacker to find a linebacker who rushed the quarterback more than he did. Now, I want to see how often he is lined up at the line of scrimmage, which on third and fourth down last year was about 2/3 of the time. Early downs only about 1/5 of the time. I'm curious to see that. But they like sending their linebackers. You know, you've talked about this with me a bunch, but I didn't realize they're the only team last year where they had multiple linebackers with 30-plus pressures. They also line their guys up closer to the line of scrimmage off the ball than any other team in the league, sub 4 yards from the line. I think there's a reason for that. But I'm fascinated to see if the Louvo role looks the exact same or looks a little bit different. And he's just, honestly, one of my favorite players on the team. Like, I love how he plays. He's a heart and soul glue guy. He's just, if I was athletic enough to play in the league, I'd like to think that would be the passion I would want to play with. Right. So give me some more Frankie Louvo, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to love Frankie Louvo. Like, when you watch him, like, you feel his emotion, you feel his energy, and maybe most importantly, you feel his physicality, man. Like, have played with guys that are similar to him, and there's something infectious about it. You know, you can like look to him as like a lightning rod of emotional energy for the team. So I can't wait to watch him play, period, you know, whatever they're doing with him. But again, I think the utilization is going to be super interesting also.
All right, we're going to hit some leftovers next. And also there's a couple of buzzing questions about this team going into the first game, including Terry McLaurin usage and pitch count. Will he be on one? We'll get into that as we continue. This is Take Command. Take Command, Grant Paulsen, Logan Paulsen. Welcome back. This pick segment is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I'm a big FanDuel guy, and over on FanDuel right now, I like Zach Ertz to go for over 40 receiving yards in this game against the Giants
Love
to open
that.
the season. That's plus 138, my friend. Over 40 yards. I'm getting back more money than I'm putting in. I think this is a good little matchup for him. And by the way, they're keeping him fresh. He wasn't at practice on Wednesday. He has been building up to the season, getting all the work in he needs, but they're taking really good care of him. And let's face it, last time we saw him, he was targeted over 15 times and catching over 10 passes in the NFC Championship game. Second half of last year, Logan, they found something and they went through him a ton in the passing game. Over 40 yards, count me in.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Zach's had a tremendous, like, Zach's literally had probably the best offensive offseason of anybody on the team. So, like, I'm in on that. Anything Zach Ertz related, I'm probably taking the over.
Once again, that was the pick segment here on Take Command, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. So I think one of the burning questions this week to hit on is Terry McLaurin and a possible pitch count. He was asked about this by the media on Wednesday. He did not really answer the question. It was certainly not a no. It was a lot of words where he basically said, I feel okay, and we're going to see. Do you think he'll run the same number of plays and be out there for the same number of snaps as he would have been had he have shown up on day one of training camp?
I mean, that's a hypothetical and it's unknowable. Like, there's no counterfactual there, but I would assume that it would be slightly less than if he had been here since the start of training camp. And again, like, is that
noticeably though? Because that wouldn't be a big deal. Like a little bit less, okay, whatever. But do you, like, if he plays, the difference to me, let's say they have 60 plays of offense in this game. If he had 20 or 25 reps, that's a big deal to me. If he's out there, 35, 40 times, which is a lot closer to, a normal 45, 50, whatever that may look like, then you may not even notice it, especially if he's getting in 25, 30 reps or whatever, 5, 6 targets, 4 or 5 catches, impacting the game, 60 yards, maybe he catches a touchdown. Like, what does his role look like in your mind?
So I think it's the stuff they used to do, quite honestly, with like Jordan Reed when he was at the peak of his powers. It's like, if I'm going to give you a pitch count, I want you in critical down and distance. So I want you in third down, I want you in red zone, and if we got a shot call, like, you're in on that. And so even though his play count could be 25, 27, 28, 30, you're not going to feel it because he's going to be in the moments where you need him to be in. And I think, like, packaging it that way is probably the most beneficial way. And I have no idea what they're going to do. I have no inside baseball on that, but I'm just saying, based on how Dan has handled return to play stuff in the past and guys that have missed time for whatever reason, like, they're usually pretty smart about not dumping them out there and giving them 1,000 reps. But I do think you can still make his impact extremely potent with a limited number of reps if you deploy him in those specific situations.
All right, another question I've got for you on this matchup. So last year, if you look at Chris Rodriguez's season, he only had 2 games where he had more than 5 carries, and one of those was against the Giants where, if I remember correctly, like in the second half of that game, they just kind of fed him. Maybe that was an in-game thing where he was the hot hand, but is there something they might like about him against this front or defense, or am I thinking too much into it, like from a matchup standpoint?
I think you're probably thinking a little too much into it. I think the thing that Chris Rodriguez does that's so efficient and makes coaches like him is he's square downhill runner and he's going to break the first tackle. And we talked about this a ton with him. If you can maximize dirty runs, and you had all those great statistics about his, yards above expected, and that shows up when you watch the film. It's not just like analytic nerd stuff. Like, on film, you feel that from him. And if he's able to do that against any defense, I think he'll play. And that's one of the reasons I'm excited to see, because everyone's talking about, Bill Krosky, Merritt, Austin Eckler, and they should be talking about Austin. Austin's, like, he's been so quiet in terms of the local media's dialogue about him, but I think he's going to have a big game this weekend. But I think in terms of running downhill, I think Chris Rodriguez is one of the better backs that I've seen in person do it. Again, I've played a lot of football, covered a lot of ball. He's really good at it. I think that's his superpower, and I think you'll probably see that on display. I don't know how many carries, but I think you'll see it on display this weekend.
So just for bookkeeping, you said analytic nerd stuff, I believe. That's what you said, right?
In a nice way. I meant that.
Yeah.
It's a term of respect, really.
It certainly sounded very respect. The reverence just oozed out of your pores when you said that. I guess that's the equivalent of me going like artificial tough guy, meat and potatoes, football cowboy stuff. Hat on a hat. We're going to move them here. Let's get 11 together.
Yeah.
Everybody touch the man next to you. And hey.
That's pretty good, man.
Thank you.
I feel like that's a high school coach in Texas that's running the single
wing.
We're getting after it.
His name's Buddy. He coaches in Texas. Everybody touch the man next to you. Look into his eyes now, okay? I understand we got 50 yards of width. Why do we need them? Let's have a pushing match. Let's get 22 together, and let's get 1 yard at a time. We'll get 10 plays straight, 1 yard at a time. We're just counting on a penalty. Football tough guy stuff. That's what we're looking for. Did you ever? I mean, that's my football coach character. Did you ever have a coach? I mean, you're from California, so it's a little different. But who was the most football cowboy guy that you ever played for?
I mean, so I don't care how smart you are. Every football coach has that a percentage of that.
A little bit of that guy.
Yeah, even Kyle and Sean, who are they're like the Albert Einsteins of football. Every once in a while,
does Mike McDaniel have any of that guy in him? I don't think he does.
That's a great point, actually. The thing about Mike is he's so maybe not. Maybe Mike doesn't have it. It's like a very small percentage because Mike, when you look at his installs, it's like a beautiful mind, man. It's like we're gonna make sure this combination, we're gonna block back to this guy, we're gonna target this player over here, and he's trying to get maximum efficiency. And then you go the other way, and then you get most O-line coaches go line them up, we're gonna run power, let's get downhill, let's get behind our pads, and so but everyone's got a little bit. And Mike McDaniel's a good pull. I don't know how much he's got. I haven't seen him in a while, but
the fader's low.
Yeah, it's
like a 97-3 ratio, whereas a Bill Callahan's 98-2 the other way or whatever.
Dude, yeah. I mean, Bill Callahan, he loves duo. I remember sitting in the first duo install I had with Bill Callahan. So duo is basically power with no puller. It's a gap scheme run, but you're just kind of sitting double teams. And I was blown away by the level of detail that he put on every single call for duo. And everyone's like, man, you were really good at running duo in Washington. And I'd go to different teams. I'm like, what was how'd you do it? And I'd walk them through. I'm like, no way. And they'd be like, no way you did all that. I'm like, damn straight we did all that. And if you want to be good at it, you got to put your time in on it. So
you got to want it.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because when you say duo, I think that's about as simple as it gets, up front.
So he would go. So for example, let's say you're in a 25 front. So for me, that's you got a Sam on the ball, you got a 5 technique. So someone's standing in between basically the tackle and tight end, and then you got a shade to that a shade and then a 3 technique on the far side. So our combination call would be different if the 5 was a tight 5 or a loose 5. If he was a 4-eye or a 4, and the tackle would call it, basically his footwork would change, and then the call he would make, my footwork would change based on what he would call. So if he was a straight up 4-eye, head up on the tackle, it was like a BIM. It was like a BIM over was the call. So basically the tackle would go 2 hands in on the double, and then I would just attack the hip as hard as I could and BIM it over to him. And then it was like a BIM tram. So then I would go to the mic. If he was a loose 5, it was a loose BIM or a wide BIM, I think was the call. And he would go, or a wide tram, and he would go vertical footwork, get a hand on the shoulder. And I knew I had to kind of take a bucket step and cross over and get my hat inside because I wasn't getting help from the tackle. And so on duo, we had a 4-eye call, a 4, a 5, and a 6 call on all that stuff. And we had to know them and be able to kind of get that communicated on the line.
That's where this game is just so unbelievable, because that feels like one of the easier things. And then there's all these different quirks and tendencies. All right, before we get out of here, take command, week 1, getting ready for the Giants. So quickly, I want to end this way. I want to go to both sides of the ball. On offense, area where you feel best that they're going to be able to take advantage, and then something you're a little nervous about.
On offense, area that I feel best about is Cliff Kingsbury calling this game. I think that's the area I feel most confident about. I think he's going to be able to kind of figure out what Shane Bowen's doing. He's going to be able to, the thing we talked about. Are they playing man? What are our man solutions? Are they playing the soft zone? What are our soft zone solutions? And then I think to kind of piggyback off of that more specifically is I think we'll be able to run the ball in some capacity and stay ahead of the sticks. And whether that's with Jaden or the running backs or with this quick screen game to the perimeter, I think that's something that I'm very confident in. And I think that's something that this team wants to be. So that's what I'm confident in. In terms of things that I'm concerned about, I'm very confident in Cliff's ability to call a game with the offensive line and maximize them. But I'm worried about that matchup, man. We just went through it. Burns is tremendous. Dexter Lawrence is, again, maybe the second best defensive tackle in football. You talk about Abdul Carter. That dude is silly. silly in terms of movement skills, right? And again, Kayvon Thibodeau, I don't want to diminish him, but again, like those other guys feel like on a different caliber. So when you've got 4 pieces like that, you got to be thinking a lot. And I think that's something that with the offensive line coming off Brandon Coleman kind of coming back into the fold, who's going to play right guard, got a rookie right tackle, like there's some questions here. And again, I'm confident the coaches can handle it. And I think they've got the right people in place. It's just it's a tough fight, man. And that's what this game's about, is those tough matchups.
I think ball's going to come out quickly for the most part. I like that there's going to be quick game. I think backs, tight ends, stuff around the line of scrimmage, screen game maybe. I think there's going to be plenty of that, and I feel good about that. I am really nervous about anything that happens after they get behind the sticks and they got to hold the football, frankly. And the Connerly matchup fascinates me. Right, we'll talk a lot about that, I'm sure, after the game. But he's going to see Brian Burns a whole lot in his NFL debut, which there are easier ways to get into a swimming pool, I will say. All right, defensively, same question. Thing you feel best about, thing you're nervous about?
I'm actually very confident in the defense on the whole. I think, okay. And so again, I love the personnel decisions. I love how they've handled the offseason. I think they're poised for a much improved year. So generally very positive. I think the one outlying question is, can you consistently stop the run? Because there is I've never been more confident in anything leading into a preview show. The Giants are going to try and run the football. They're going to try and run the ball. And it will be a long day if we can't efficiently stop it. You can stop it once, stop it twice, but if they're going to kind of average 4.5 yards a carry and, the running back runs for 120 yards and like that's a bad sign for how they want to play defense. And so can they get to second and third long? Can they rush the passer? Can they cover? I'm pretty confident they can. Is all of this stuff, all of these personnel additions, all of this new philosophy on first and second down, does that actualize is the thing I'm probably most concerned about.
Let's play football. It's finally here. Giants at the Commanders, 1:00 on Sunday. Washington looking to get off to a 1-0 start at home before they hit the road on a short week for the Packers. So you'll hear from us after the game and then very soon thereafter looking ahead to Green Bay. For Logan, I'm Grant saying so long. Thanks for watching and listening to Take Command. However you get your audio, available wherever you do, and of course on video, 106.7 The Fan, Team 980 on YouTube. Thanks to our producer, Evan. We will catch up with you after the game on Sunday afternoon.